this is a quick video for working a very deep tuck hold. And this is a bit different than the normal tuck you might be used to practicing, just because it's a very extreme level of flexion in the shoulders. And it's hard to hold initially. I've been working a lot on this myself. It's a bit exhausting. There's a few ways to do this. I'll show you this in the middle of the floor, and this takes me a little bit to get into it. But what happens is basically, with full shoulder flexion, basically I'm pushing the shoulder blades into my ribs completely and pushing my chest forward. Now as I hold a tuck, my butt's gonna pull back a bit because I'm trying to find as much of an arch as I can through the mid and upper back to pull my hips back and counterbalance the pose. It's definitely hard to hold this in the middle of the room. I'll see how much I can narrate while I'm doing this. I struggle a little bit with this myself. And like I said, it takes a pretty extreme level of engagement in the shoulders. It's very much worth working on. This is gonna make you very solid in your handstands and make pressing much more possible. And this also requires a pretty deep amount of compression. Now I'll do this on the floor here, away from the wall, and then I'll show you how to practice this against the wall and work toward it. And at first it's gonna feel kind of overwhelming. You'll probably get into the shape and wanna drop out right away unless you've been practicing for a little while. But just work it as best you can, see how far you can go with this. So coming to the tuck, I'm just gonna set this up right here. And, you know, as usual, my hands are shoulder width. I'm just gonna hop up to the tuck and then tighten it up. So from here, I'm just gonna bring this up and keep my knees bent. I'm going to keep my legs together here and then pull everything in. Now, what I want to find first to keep this under control for myself is I'm still looking at the floor and I'm really pressing from my shoulders and trying to get my shoulder blades pressing into my mid and upper back. And I'm going to pull my knees in as close as I can. And as I do this, you should see an arch forming through my spine. I'm just guessing because obviously I can't see it myself. And if you can take things further, you can even bring your head through your arms a little bit and bring a little bit of a gauge shift. This almost brings you in toward the engagement of the upper back that you would hold in a hollow back shape. Woo! And I'll pull this back down. And like I said, it's kind of hard to talk while I'm doing that. It takes a lot of engagement. But for practicing that and just getting toward that, it's good to use the wall. And you're gonna have to play around this a little bit to see how far you need to be from the wall. Because basically, you can do this with your belly facing in. You could conceivably do this, actually the other way, and I will try that first. So my hands right now are probably about 10 inches from the wall, maybe. I don't have a super bendy low back, so I'm probably gonna need that space to actually be able to touch the wall with my butt. And then from here, just bring it up to the tuck. And let's see if you can pull this down. And this gets me into that level of engagement. I should actually be a little bit closer to start to pull my weight off the wall with this. But you can see from the upper back, I'm getting in toward that shape. I'm not gonna be able to compress unless I pull myself off the wall a bit to really stack this. But that is one way to work yourself into that shape. So it doesn't have to be quite so extreme. You don't have to worry about twisting out too much because you can always drop a foot to come down. Now, if you want to do this belly toward the wall to feel this out, I do recommend practicing it like this to start, especially if you haven't really worked that sort of thing. I can't really tell you either way would be better for the wall hold. It sort of depends on what makes you nervous when you're balancing actually against the wall. This might be a little bit more nerve-wracking with your belly pulled in. However, you can lean everything toward the wall and just step things down. But like I said, this takes a good amount of adjustment. So coming in here, I'm just gonna walk this up. And this time, I'm probably gonna set this up with my hands about a foot from the wall, maybe a little bit more, and see how far I can compress. Now, if you find yourself too close, as you're bending the knees and pulling them down, you can get the knees separate and pull them toward the sides of your ribs. But then, again, you're pressing the shoulder blades in toward your mid and upper back as much as you can to find that compression. When I bring my knees together, whew, and like I said, that is quite intense. And another way to work that would be just bringing the knees out wide. And I can probably go a little closer to the wall, keep in mind, but a lot of this is just really feeling that engagement in the upper back, because most people don't get anywhere near this as far as the shoulders being pressed to the upper back. It's usually something more like this with the shoulders moving out, and that's a little bit of planching. So anyway, to work toward that, you need to figure out how to put yourself into the shape. I just showed you three options here. In the middle of the floor, which is probably the last option you're gonna try, or facing the wall or facing away from the wall to come into it. And you have to aggressively press into the floor to get there. And then if you're against the wall, you slide it down toward that compression. If you're leaning into the wall with your belly facing out, then it's a little bit easier just to lean on into that a bit. But again, if you want to find a balance point, you're going to have to find sort of the perfect position for your hands so you can move in and out of that if you want to play with that a little bit. But yeah, it's a pretty intense hold. It's worth working on. Hope this helps.